Hello again. I'm having some trouble with the internet tonight. I've had one go at this already and it's gone down. Fingers crossed it'll work. This is my last Facebook Live. Whew. It's been a long campaign, but in 11 hours the polls will be open and people will be making a decision, and I'll be out there going around the polling booths, meeting people, hopefully helping people who are struggling in Storm Doris to still get to the polling booths. So, last Facebook Live. If you've been by this, we need you to join the Lib Dems. You can do it from £1 a month. Please join us. Or, if you're not going to join us, please make a donation. Everything here has been funded by the public. Where we failed to reach you, we haven't had the resources. Thank you, Lynn. We haven't had the resources that Labour and the Tories have had. We've been running a campaign on about a quarter of the budget, and we've worked so hard. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to do, but we need funding. So you go to rebeccahanson.org.uk and you'll get the opportunity to donate. Anything you can donate would be hugely appreciated, even if it's just a £5. Please show that you care about democracy and you care about people who are fighting to have good democracy here in Copeland. Okay, so it's your last chance to ask questions. Please do share this on the Copeland forums in particular. Thanks, Timothy Jones. Please share it. Please give people that opportunity to ask me anything. Right. I need to start with, I'm going to talk a little bit about the highs, lows, the odds, the ends, the funny bits. I need to start with a low. We lost a member during this campaign. That was really, really tough. And that member's family have all been campaigning as well. You know, they were working at HQ and now they're not here. Big one. Lots of love to all the family involved. They know who they are. They know we love them. They know we appreciate everything that they've done. And also, some of my deliverers are over 80, pushing 80, and they've got horrendous chest infections from being out in the road. So lots of love to them as well. I am worried about you. Look after yourself, guys. Thank you for sharing the video. Please keep sharing this video on all the forums. This is the last video. It's the last chance to touch people and give them the opportunity to ask me questions live. Okay, from a low to a high. Democracy matters, and I have pushed this campaign so hard to reignite democracy here. Politicians tend to be almost like cartoon characters that you chuck rocks at, either from behind your keyboard warrior status or in the pub. You just denigrate them and you think it doesn't matter. And I wanted to bring the humanity back to democracy. And we've had that in two ways. We got hustings going properly. And hustings matters because there in front of you when you're sat in a hustings audience are human beings. People who have all the failings of human beings but are still people worthy of respect because they are standing up there and taking the flak and taking really hard questions and a lot of personal criticism because they care and because they care about society and they want to do a good job. And then it all makes sense. You know, the mistakes they make, the things that go wrong, the times they let you down, the promises. They're human beings and they're only capable of doing a really good job if they have loads of support from their community. If instead of just slagging them off, people get together, try and work out what their problems are, work out what needs to be done, go and see their MP, go and see their councillors, talk it through with them, and then help them. Democracy is often crap because people aren't getting involved. You need to get involved. Follow your passions, follow your beliefs. It's one of the most liberating things to do. Is it your internet breaking up, Lynn? I hope so. I think it looks pretty stable here now. Perhaps other people could tell me. So that's been a high. And then the other side has been this Facebook Live, getting close to the keyboard warriors. Okay, guys, Criticize me, but talk to me. Tell me whatever you want to tell me. And some of my students have been turning up to tell me what a crap maths teacher I was. And that's fine. It's much better that you say it and we talk about it than that you just resent it. So there's been a real high of the democracy. Right, odds and ends. I've been campaigning really hard on hard Brexit and what it's doing for the nuclear industry, pulling us out of the Euratom agreement. I've become a real hub and people have been sending me all the information and all the articles. Thank you, Delise. Please keep sharing, guys. Please keep sharing this on your pages. Let's involve as many people as we can tonight. So I've become a hub for all the information about what Euratom involves and why we should be fighting to stay in it. Thank you, Rosie. And I talked about that with Baroness Brinton, our party president, when she was up, and she involved Lord Teverson, who'd been up to Sellafield, and he has put all that together, and there's an amendment to the Brexit bill going to be debated in the House of Lords next week. And it'll be really carefully debated, unlike what happened in the Commons, and hopefully we'll make progress. They will be fighting for it. It's complete mad nonsense, like the whole of our Brexit, but this bit's particularly relevant to Copeland. And we have an overview of the nuclear industry here that other people don't have. Rebecca, what's your stand on nuclear weapons as distinct from nuclear power? To be honest, I don't know. I think it's an incredibly complex issue, what our status in nuclear weapons should be. I feel it's something I should do like years of work on to have an opinion on. The Lib Dems have a generally anti-nuclear weapons stance, so I respect that. And it's going to be debated again at Spring Conference in March in York. So if I get elected, I think I should bring together people who are pro-nuclear weapons and people who are anti-nuclear weapons and have an event with them and get them all to talk to me and try and educate me so I can make a good contribution to that debate. Thanks, Paula, and thanks so much for your help. Please keep sharing. Like the page, share the video. Where we got to, yeah, so Euratom I've been fighting for. Brexit's come up, I don't know, just seems to be a national media thing. People haven't been talking about it too much here. But I've come to the conclusion, you know, a lot of the people who are saying to people like me, I knew what I voted for, I knew what I was getting. It's like, bunkum you didn't. I didn't either. Nobody knew what this involved. It was way too complex and it wasn't set out properly. Bring me the person who had thought through the consequences of leaving Euratom. And ultimately, I think there was this underlying text to the Brexit vote. Thank you, Helen. This underlying text that people were being asked really whether they trusted David Cameron or Nigel Farage. And David Cameron and his Tory government, the ones who've stuffed up Whitehaven Academy and the ones who've stuffed up our health service and thinks it's a great idea to travel up to 4 hours in labour. So why would anyone trust him? Just didn't trust him. Crap Tory government. Don't know. I mean, I voted to remain because I could see that the argument for out was based on lies and it was just going to be chaos. And I didn't think we should chuck away, despite all the failings of Europe, and I do see them. It doesn't mean that anything is better than that. It doesn't mean you just throw it all away and everything will get better. That's not how the world works. What else? The NHS. Okay. So there's a lot of positives. That's been a real high for me, a really positive journey. Before this started, I'd identified 3 things. One was that there was a really strong force for closing maternity services coming from NHS England, which I was very worried about. The second was the role of the regulator. I think they were giving directives and they weren't thinking through the consequences of those directives. The directive to sort out the staffing situation at paediatrics, which was going to lead to closing, leading to obstetrics closing. So we've made a lot of progress with those. I guess one of my funny bits first, I brought together lots of the leading healthcare professionals to meet Baroness Brinton when she was here. And probably my favourite moment of the campaign. I mean, I hadn't met a lot of these people before, but we all went round the table and introduced ourselves. And finally it got to Andy, and Andy just said, "I'm Andy and I'm Rebecca's manager." And the roar of laughter at the idea that was manageable just about blasted him out the room, which was quite satisfying. Thank you for that one. So that's a funny bit. But we've made some progress with the NHS England issue and this report they issued saying that it was safe to travel up to 4 hours in labour. Norman Lamb, who's a Lib Dem MP who chairs the all-party parliamentary group on scrutinising the NHS, he has now written to the head of NHS England raising substantial concerns about that, raising substantial concerns about the success regime process and recommending the return to the process we should have had, which was the National Review on Rural Acute and Obstetric Care recommended in the Kirkup Review. So that letter is gone. I'll try and get that onto my blog tonight if I can. Thanks, David. And thanks for sharing the video, guys. Please keep sharing. If you can think of a page to share it on, share it. Especially West Cumbrian pages, especially Copeland pages. So we've made some progress with that. So it's going to be harder. NHS England are now acting in the spotlight of the all-party parliamentary group, who will be keeping an eye on what's going on, and I'm more comfortable for that. I challenged the regulator. I had that meeting set up before this election came along. But by the time that meeting happened, I'd had the meeting with all the senior consultants, and we'd had some amazing people over here campaigning, senior consultants from other hospitals who gave us some parallel insight that was just amazing. And that discussion with the regulators, with CQC, was really, really powerful. There's a lot of things that they understand now that they didn't understand before. So I'm pleased about that. Okay, some funny bits. Right. My favourite funny bit I've got two real favourites. I mean, so much of it is really funny. It's just so human, the way that people behave. And the 7 of us who've been standing, none of us expected this. It's all completely out of the blue. We're all ordinary people with completely different lives, and all of a sudden we're up there trying to do this extraordinary thing. And we do see the funny side of it, and we're often just in fits of laughter when we're off air and behind the scenes. But a lot of the candidates have kind of rote-learned speeches or bits of speeches that they keep trotting out. And we get to a stage where at Hustings in Millom, you might have noticed all sort of mouthing along to other people's speeches. Just having a laugh. Sorry, didn't mean to be cheeky. It just passes the time. But one bit of Jack's speech, Jack, the Green candidate, he'd been creative with his speech. He'd learnt all his, listened in his English lessons about making what he said interesting. So he had a beautiful metaphor about a dangling nuclear carrot, the dangling nuclear carrot of Sellafield. And this came out again and again. And, the first time it's an interesting metaphor and it makes you think, but ultimately it just becomes a dangling nuclear carrot. And so our tribute to Jack tonight, here we go. Here we have a dangling nuclear carrot. Only I've got a problem with my printer. The radioactive symbol is supposed to be black and yellow, but my yellow inks run out, so it's black and pink. So I'm afraid it's a dangling gay nuclear carrot. All right. So Jack, thank you for my dangling nuclear carrot. Sorry, I was kept bursting into laughter every time you mentioned it, because that's what I was imagining. A radioactive carrot. And my other favourite funny bit, Roy, the independent candidate, I'd never had, whatever you thought he was going to say next, it was just always something completely different. And, you know, how are we going to sort out obstetric services in Whitehaven and women having to travel so far? It was always to do with food canning. And, you know, well, if we didn't have processed food, we'd be healthier. Yeah, but Roy, people are still going to have babies. If they're healthy, they'll still have babies. Like, oh, right, okay. But his literature, his leaflet, has this wonderful bit in it about global warming did not come from Mars. It's that paragraph that starts about global warming and Mars. And you think it's going to be really sane because it goes on to talk about the need to protect the planet, and then it concludes with the need to protect the planet for our ancestors. And that one did it for me. I hope it makes you smile too. Okay. My biggest low in this campaign has been that I am absolutely heartbroken about what's going on at Whitehaven Academy. And it just could be so instantly fixed. So let's just run through it. They were forced into a relationship with a sponsor at the beginning of 2014. The sponsor made lots of promises, and those promises, like all the kids having tablets and technology and a venture learning curriculum, and it all looked really positive, and none of those promises were kept. And what happened instead was that all the contract services that supplied the school were stripped out and replaced with those that belonged to the sponsor. So those kids, it's now 3 years in, and they still don't have IT. This is a secondary school in the 20th century, and these kids have not had IT for 3 years. When I went to the school in the summer in my role as an education advisor, I was horrified because it looked completely derelict. The weeds were growing everywhere, the windows were rotting out and dropping out. They've got no resources, no kit, no PE kit, sanitary bins don't get emptied, there is no toilet roll, and then there's been this really big travesty because the whole community had come together to build a plan to fix this situation and prevent us having a sink school in Whitehaven. And the plan had been to spend 30 million building which is, all this money that's coming for regeneration in West Cumbria, it was going there because it was needed there. And there were so many other places it's needed, but we knew it was needed most there. We need a new Bill school for Whitehaven. And the sponsor pulled out of that unilaterally against the will of everyone here in Copeland. Nobody thinks it's a good idea not to have this school. We need our integrated school. And it just really breaks my heart because I know what it is to be in that situation, and it wrecks people's self-esteem. It wrecks the kids' self-esteem, the teachers. I think the head and the deputy head are brilliant. I think the kids are brilliant. I've not really met the staff, but I've no concerns about what's going on there. But they cannot fix this because of what the sponsor is doing. And they are working so hard. I mean, the head's got computers in that don't work because the server's not working, so he's fighting to get a server. They've done some repair works on the school, but they're just coming from so far back. And then people have kept disappearing. Whenever people have raised questions about the sponsor, they're suddenly gone. Nobody has any say. The governing body is sacked, key staff are sacked, just gone, silenced. And the sponsor just should have been removed. As Lib Dems, when I was working on policy, we fought to give Ofsted the right to sanction a failing academy sponsor. The Tory government opposed that, and they refused to let Ofsted have that right. So it is entirely in the gift of a gentleman called Nash, Lord Nash, who's the Under Secretary of State for education. It is his decision. It is him that is writing to the school. It is him that is keeping the sponsor in place. Now, we've got a date coming up, March the 16th. Okay, March the 16th is the day that Cumbria will be signing the contracts on the new school, in the new build. We need to stop that process, and we can stop that process if the academy sponsor is gone by then. So hopefully it'll be me tomorrow with a absolute passion. I want it to be me fighting for that, because I know what I'm fighting for, and it's all through me, and it's really hard for people to ignore me because I just get it so much better than they do. But it may be Trudy. So Trudy, please, you know, if your kids are watching, if she wins tomorrow, you've got to get her to watch this video, because all the passion you had for saving your school, Trudy, you need much more than that. You need a handbag, really with sharp corners, and where any Tory who is saying, oh, it'll be the fault of the teachers, let's just sack a few teachers, you get them all, old Tories sitting there going, oh, I remember in the 1970s all these progressive ideas, that'll be the problem, let's just sack a few and punish them a bit harder and it'll all be fine. Trudy, just whack them round the head with a handbag and tell them this is the 21st century and they're wrong. And you know what you're talking about, and the sponsor needs to go now. I've been quite tough on you, Trudy. That's how you win my respect. We've got to get rid of the sponsor by March the 16th so we can halt the process of awarding that contracts for that school and sort it out. You need to meet the Whitehaven Academy Action Group if you've got. They will be in touch with you, I know, straight away. Got to listen to them, got to get your list of points, got to fight for this. This matters. So that's my big low, that I haven't really moved that on. There's lots of other things going on, lots of important things I'd like to support. But as I look at the other things, you know, like the flooding and issues of tourism, issues with rates, other issues, there are other people who have an eye on that too, and there are other people you can go to who care and will support you. But those other issues I've been talking about, the nuclear issues, the issues at Whitehaven Academy, the issues with the NHS, they will be on the shoulders of Copeland's MP. Other thing, Trudy, I would say, give yourself time to get your head around the NHS issues. I would read James Titcombe's book, because you'll learn so much about what's been going on. It's quite a short read, and about the journey that John Woodcock took in coming to understand that, and the mistakes he made in the early stages as an MP, and how he learnt from his mistakes. Highs. Don't know. I have absolutely loved it. It's been such a privilege. I talked about just touching people with democracy and getting closer and making it human again. So that's definitely the high for me. The high I've achieved getting the Euratom amendment, really, that will be really thoroughly debated. I've been able to move things on more with the NHS because of the meetings I've had, because I've been a candidate. The meeting with all those key people from the NHS, one of the very special things was when they all start talking about how they wanted to innovate, and suddenly it was like we weren't subject to all these stupid interventions again, and we actually, there are so many super bright people in West Cumbria who just need a voice and just need a chance to sit in a room and chat to each other and work out how we fix our problems. And I would love to be there to support those people. Keswick is feeling neglected. Tourism hasn't been mentioned much during the election. Yeah, well, I've been in and I'm listening and I do care. I mean, Keswick, it's not just tourism. There's business rates, there's flooding, there's parking, all sorts of stuff going on in Keswick, and I do get it and I do care, and I'd love to be behind the flooding group in particular, because I'd be particularly good at fighting that, because I understand the maths and that really helps with that particular issue. There are other people who are on the case with some of the other issues that are going on. Some of the issues are to do with Allerdale, so they need to challenge their Allerdale councillors. It's actually not so much the job of the MP, because Allerdale have made decisions about parking and charging. Go and hassle Michael Heaslip at Allerdale. He's in charge of parking and he will listen. Just run round him again and again. Tourism, I would love to put in if I get elected, when I've dealt with all the really important stuff. Bye, Harry. Thanks for joining us. When I've dealt with all the really urgent stuff, I'd love to put in a special bill about tourism, to boost tourism, about schools having core term when all the kids have to be in school and shouldn't be on holiday, and shoulder season term when you can apply to take family holidays, especially ones that will be of educational benefit for the kids. So we can open up the tourism season, because it's too narrow and it doesn't need to be that narrow. And different schools would have different seasons. If you've got an inner city school where the kids speak 15 languages, you've got to have a really big core term and really narrow shoulder season, but there should be some. Whereas in our rural schools, where we've got mixed year group classes, really that core term is very tiny because it's just much more flexible, and that's really good for our people who work in the tourism industry. Not because it'll boost tourism, because more people will be able to come out of the limited school holidays, but because they'll be able to get away on holiday with their kids, because obviously they can't take holiday during the school holidays. Yeah, they do. That's true. But everyone feels that way in Copeland. It is a vast constituency. Everyone feels like everyone else is getting all the attention. It's just massive. So that's kind of part of the way of it. And I'm sorry for that. Okay. Any more questions? Now's the chance. I'm going to be finishing off, putting my daughter to bed, having some cuddly time and getting ready for a very long day tomorrow. Please vote for me. I'm passionate about doing this. I'd do a really good job for you. It'd be an absolute privilege to represent you. Please watch out for your friends tomorrow. If you've got elderly people in your street who would like to vote, Storm Doris, I'm really concerned about Storm Doris. Just take extra time to go and knock on people's door tomorrow. Check they're okay. If they'd like to vote, see if they'd like a lift, please. It doesn't matter if they're voting for me or not. Are you going to win? It's possible. All the polls are showing it's between me and Trudy. So we'll see. All the polls, such as they are, like the national TV, have bothered. That's a definite low, is that nobody from the national media came here to report on the story, apart from Michael Crick, who came and found a story that was actually here. They just came with their own agenda and got sound bites from us to suit their agenda, and they never looked, and they never listened, and they never cared. And that's really tough. I remember the day after Jamie Reid resigned, CFM phoned me and they said, look, Jamie's resigned. He says he's resigned because he wants to shine a spotlight on the NHS and education issues here. And I just went, oh my goodness. They asked me to comment on it, and you can go back and listen. And I just said, I am really concerned that our issues will be completely lost as the major parties throw mud at each other. And in the end, that's why I stood. Because I just wanted to fight to rebuild the humanity of the democratic process and try and make it focus on our issues, and I really did my best. Even the FT reporting was poor, and I sat with that reporter and I went through the issues, and you're just like, why? But then reporters come here, and I got them even recording stuff that was real, and then it gets back to London and it all goes on the editing room floor. They're just not interested. And it's just not good enough. Even local TV, I don't think really got it. Don't think the BBC got it. Although they did come and do the debate, which was good, so credit for that on Radio Cumbria, but I didn't see it on the TV. Well done to the local press. The local press have been absolutely brilliant. hugely high quality praise to the Cumbria News Group. They deserve it. They do a great job here. And I was proud to raise money to spend some money on advertising because, you know, I respect what they do. Okay, I think we're done. So, it's been a campaign of real highs and real lows, and frustrations and successes. But whenever I've had huge frustrations and fights and strops and things going wrong, and that is totally normal for a campaign, there's been one thing that I've done, and that is I've found the Amy McLaughlin song Dream On, which has been my pick-me-up song because I've had no time to be low. It's like, bang, got to get back focused, back on it. So big thank you to Amy McLaughlin for that song, which is fabulous. And when I've finished this and sent it to Process, I'm going to post a link on this Facebook page. And enjoy, guys. And thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Bye.